Hola, it's Joe Partivila. This is the Forbes Books Podcast, and one of the fringe benefits of my job is the chance to pick the brains of people that have been super successful in life and in business. And this week is no different. I'm talking to serial entrepreneur Todd Mezrah, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Mezrah Consulting, an executive benefits and compensation consulting firm based in Tampa. Mezrah Consulting has been providing consulting, funding, and administrative services to Fortune 500 companies, including financial institutions and companies, for over 25 years. Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be interviewed by one of the greats.
You're sweet, Todd. Well, one thing I want to start with is you've coined this phrase that I've never heard before, so obviously you're probably the guy who came up with it, but it's the business athlete. For folks not familiar with that terminology, what do you mean when you're talking about business athletes?
Yeah, from my perspective, and in my career over the past 30 plus years, I've kind of coined the term business athlete by really being privileged and having the opportunity to work with a lot of super talented executives in a lot of different industries. And they all seem to have very similar traits and qualities and characteristics. And those qualities, traits, and characteristics, in addition to habits, very much parallel that of a professional sports athlete. So I started coining the word business athlete as someone that performs at the highest levels, delivers, scores every single day, and just thought that was just very interesting. And because of that, I've been talking about the business athlete for many years now.
And how does the business athlete keep score? Because as you mentioned, scoring is a big part of being an athlete, especially a professional athlete. You're playing a game to win. So how does a business athlete score?
Yes, there's a lot of different ways that a business athlete can score. And unlike a professional athlete that might be in a particular sport, whether it be, soccer or football, baseball, whatever that sport is, where there's points involved, the scorecard of a business athlete is very much different. They keep score by maybe getting a meeting with someone of influence. So that would be a huge win, and that would be a score. Maybe mentoring someone and getting them to the next level in their particular career. That would be a way for them to score. There's financial scores. So maybe consummating a multi-billion-dollar merger and acquisition could be another big score. And these scores mean different things depending upon what's important in that particular business athlete. But here again, lots of different ways for them to score, both financially, monetarily, and then just from a feel-goods perspective, because those things count as well from an overall scoring standpoint.
And let's talk about your work with Mezrah Consulting, because I've always been fascinated by consultants, because it's not like you can go to school to be a consultant. There's no a BA in consulting. If there is, I haven't heard of it. So what led you to that path to be able to achieve this role that you have and create this company?
Well, my path was, I would say, influenced by my dad and influenced by some of his associates that he respected in the life insurance industry. And then from that, I kind of early on knew what my path was going to be. So unlike a lot of people, I guess, that are still trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up, I figured it out at a very early age and was super focused and motivated to do that. I got my insurance license when I was 18 years old, started selling insurance in college, then went to graduate school and got a degree with an emphasis in insurance, did internships at different insurance brokerage and consulting firms. So always had an eye on insurance, but more specifically selling insurance as an asset to sizable corporations, both, multi-billion-dollar privately held and publicly traded companies, with the decision makers being either the CEO, the CFO, and in some cases, the board of directors.
All right, so you're an 18-year-old selling insurance. Were you like the Doogie Howser of insurance sales? I mean, what was it like approaching someone 18 years old? I mean, I know I had pimples all over my face, and I was not the best self of my I guess whatever I became to be. But what was that like when you were meeting with people and they see this 18-year-old kid selling them insurance?
Yeah, well, I wasn't as tall as Doogie Howser, so I'll just clarify that. I probably had a few more pimples than Doogie Howser's. I didn't have his makeup artist. But to be honest, I was kind of fearless. I didn't really see myself as being 18 years old. I kind of strove from a base of knowledge and always knew that I was going to be more knowledgeable than the person sitting across the table from me. And so I didn't really see or act or behave as if I was 18. I always saw myself as much older mentally, and that probably shined through from the client's perspective. They're probably saying, this kid actually thinks that he's smart. This kid actually thinks that he knows more than me. And the more conviction that he has in his voice, I'm kind of might tend to actually believe this kid. And so maybe I should do business with him. And that's kind of what transpired over those years.
Did you ever had any awkward like people not believing that you that you were a legitimate insurance person?
I had people kind of testing me and questioning me in the middle of meetings, yes. And then I had several people constantly ask me, so why do you think you're so smart? Or why do you think you're so smart? Or I had one client ask me, how did you learn all this stuff so quickly? So I just gave them the honest answer. I mean, you just study. It's just becoming a student of the business, which getting back to your question about the business athlete, that's what business athletes do. Business athletes become a student of the business. I don't mean just a superficial skimming across the water. I don't mean deep dive, studying, researching every single day, every weekend. That's what business athletes do. No different than a professional athlete who might watch film during the week to better prepare for their game on the weekends.
And so when did this pivot happen to Mezrah Consulting along the way?
So the pivot to Mezrah Consulting happened after I felt like I had enough life experiences in the business world and enough knowledge. That all started in Tampa, Florida. It actually started when my dad was trying to convince me that there were enough billion-dollar companies in Tampa, Florida to start a business. So he actually set up a few meetings for me. I met with some C-level executives, kind of introduced myself, shared some ideas, found out pretty quick that my prospect list was very short, ran out of steam after about a couple weeks worth of phone calls and meetings, and I needed to expand my market, not only throughout Florida, but throughout the entire country.
Talk to me about that journey, because you said that list runs out in a week. Did at that point, do you to borrow the old entrepreneurial phrase of, was that just bootstrapping and just like grinding it out at that point?
Total grind, total bootstrapping, and just being persistent and persevering through a lot of ups and downs, and just never give up. So I call it your level of NGU. So a business athlete has a very, very high level of NGU, which is short for never give up. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a high level of NGU, there's a very, very high probability you will not be a business athlete. You've got to, number one, believe in yourself. And the more you believe in yourself, the more NGU you're going to have, because eventually something good is going to happen. And that's what happened to me at the age of 29. I was able to close my first $1 billion publicly traded company, and that was kind of the spark and the credibility that I needed to grow my business.
So that moment when you sold to that $1 billion company, was that sort of like, again, using, athletic terms, was that sort of like your championship? Like that was when you officially crowned yourself as sort of like this championship business athlete? Was that the moment?
No, I'd say that was a moment that I actually got drafted to the pros.
Okay. All right.
Definitely was not consummated as a business athlete at the age of 29. I was on my way. So maybe I was considered a business athlete, but I was still maybe semi-pro or maybe even amateur. But I was certainly on my way. I felt like I had gotten drafted. And the drafting is really done by the corporate client, or it could also be done by maybe someone within a company that you're working for or working with that kind of promotes you to that next level. I feel like I got promoted to the next level at that point in time.
All right. So when did the title come to town for Todd Mezrah? When did you? At what point were you like, okay, I'm in the pros and I've got the title belt around my waist?
So that's a good question. There's been so many wins, I don't really categorize them as some bigger than others. Maybe when I closed my first Fortune 100 company, that was maybe a really neat win. But here again, they're all really special. I value the relationships with all of my clients, regardless of size. So I never really feel like I've won the Super Bowl. Here again, the business athlete is never comfortable. So just because you won the Super Bowl doesn't mean you don't want to go win another Super Bowl. So if you ask Roger Federer, Tom Brady, or Michael Jordan, you already won the championship, you won the Super Bowl, or you won Wimbledon, why don't you just stop? They would probably answer that question because I enjoy winning, and one is not better than the other, and you never feel like it's enough. You're always uncomfortable, and I think the same goes for me as well as other business athletes around the country.
What do you think? In athletics, it could be injury, it could be distractions, it could be emotional issues. What stops the business athlete from fulfilling their promise of going pro? What do you see from your work with these folks about what differentiates them and what is stopping them from going pro?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is themselves. So not believing in themselves, not believing in their ideas, not believing that they can make it to the next level, or just being comfortable. So they get to a point in their professional careers where they're just comfortable being an amateur, semi-pro, and they know the effort that it's going to take to go pro, and they just don't want to make that type of an effort. Now, for the business athletes that are 100% focused on going pro, and they do want to make the effort, business athletes can get injured as well, right? Their credibility can be injured. That happens often. They can be injured from a personal perspective, whether it's a divorce or whether it's something that's going on within their family or their parents. It forces them to kind of deviate from their path. Those are all things that can derail or temporarily derail someone from actually going pro. So a lot of variables, a lot of hurdles, a lot of tenacity that's required in order to become a business athlete.
And one of the things with athletes, outside of like the Bo Jacksons and Deion Sanders of the world, they usually play just the one sport. And with you, Todd, being a business athlete, you are what we would call a serial entrepreneur with multiple companies. You got MAP Benefits, Bowley Rescue, Mezrah Consulting. So how does a business athlete spread his wings and work in multiple verticals successfully?
I mean, I would say I'm a bit of an anomaly there because I would provide guidance to people that are looking to become business athletes is to just be great at one thing.
Right.
And that is usually the theme. So if you're going to be in the technology space, stick with technology. If you're going to be in logistics, stick with logistics. If you're going to be in hospitality, stick with hospitality. Become the best in the world in that specific area or target market. I was a bit of an anomaly in that my technology company was spun out of my frustration with my executive benefits consulting business, and my Bowley Rescue company was spun out of some challenges we were having with some of our banking clients to find a solution to particular problems. So everything was related to my core consulting business. Then I just kind of grew different businesses from that. And then I partnered with other people in those businesses. So to do it all on my own would have been incredibly challenging. In fact, it was challenging with partners. I can't even imagine doing it all on your own. But my advice would be the best at one thing. You can't, as most athletes will tell you, they can't be the best at more than one sport, and there's a reason for that. Those same reasons apply to the business athlete.
I'd love to get into your thoughts about partnerships here, because with athletes, when they're professionals, they've all earned their stripes to become either, professional football player, baseball player, you fill it in. But how do you know that business athlete that you are going to partner with, how do you know that they're at the same level as you?
You just know. I mean, by way of conversation, by way of attitude, by way of life experiences, by way of their view of the world, by way of who they associate themselves with, by way of their family. It's a long list of check the boxes. And so you've got to be 100% aligned on most things. But when I say aligned, personalities might be different, approaches might be different, thought processes might be different. But at the end of the day, you all end up in the same place. So there's always more than one way to get there. And having a balance, if you look at some of the greatest partnerships in business, there was always the yin and the yang. And I think it's important to partner with people that are going to challenge you and not just agree with every single thing you say. And that's what helps each other grow in that particular partnership, regardless of the industry.
And you've got 30 years experience in corporate finance. How is your radar now when you meet a potential new client or someone you're going to work with, where I guess, love at first sight, the romantic terms, can you pick up on stuff like that in initial meetings with folks?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without sounding arrogant, I kind of have the benefit of kind of handpicking and working with who I want to work with. And if they're not fun, smart, nice, I'm probably not going to work with them. I didn't really have that luxury when I was broke and trying to build a business. But nowadays, I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. They just don't know it. That's more of a luxury. And you want to work with people who are fun, and you want to work with people who are smart and articulate. And it's very interesting to work with people in, different industries. And, that's all good. And so, I look for things like that as well. And I'm sure they're asking and looking at me and asking the same questions as to, what's the value proposition of working with Todd and Mezrah Consulting? How are they different? What's their value proposition? So the sword cuts both ways. And you need to remember that whenever you go into a meeting.
And, you talk about how the business athlete always wants to improve. That championship is not enough. They want to win more and more and more. And I'm just curious. I know that you're a big proponent of learning something new every day. So talk to me about something recently that you learned that you're like, wow, I'm glad I figured that out, or I'm glad I picked that up.
Oh my goodness, there's so much that I learn every day. In fact, I make it a point to learn something new every day. We call it, in Judaism, there's a word for it in Yiddish called shehekianu, which means a first. So I really live my life every day, and actually very prideful of the fact that I try and learn something new, whether it's about someone or something, every single day of my life. And if you do the math, if you learn 365 new things a year, and you multiply that by 5 or 10 years, that's a lot of learning. That's a lot of things that is going to make you stronger and make you more cultured and more empathetic and just give you much better perspective on the world around you. And I think that's very, very important.
And when you tell that to someone at a cocktail party or something like that, I try to learn something new today. Do they say, how do you do that? Do you just read a lot of books, listen to podcasts? How do you consume this knowledge?
It's pretty simple. 2 words: ask questions. So the thing that's missing a lot in society today is people's curiosity for other people. More times than not, when you go to a party, people like to talk about themselves. They can talk about their kids and their business and all the things that they've done. And very rarely will they turn it back around and say, so tell me about what you're doing, and where are you guys from, and where did you go to school, and what business are you engaged in, and where are your kids? And, unfortunately, it's a very rare occurrence that happens. And so we really, when I say we, me and my wife, Sherry, what I like to call my permanent girlfriend, we really like to learn more about other people. We don't want to hear about ourselves. I mean, we tend to be kind of boring like that. We already know everything about ourselves. We don't need to hear it again and regurgitate it. And so The answer is ask questions. Ask questions of people in different industries, people with different disciplines, people from different backgrounds, people from different geographies. That's how you learn at the end of the day.
Curiosity is important, I think, for any leader. When did you realize that curiosity would be such a big part of your life?
That probably happened when I grew up in the Jewish religion. I had to go to synagogue every single week for 3 days a week. And so we were hammered question everything. So I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid, questioning everything. I was even sent to detention for questioning the teacher because nothing that the teacher said made any sense. I went to the dean of discipline. They called my mother. She showed up at the disciplinary. Your son's being very disruptive in class. And he kind of explained to her, what I was doing. She says, well, let me get this straight. So what you're saying is my son is on detention. He was put into a room because he continued to ask the teacher questions, which was disrupting his lecture. She's like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, isn't the teacher's number one role in the classroom is to answer questions of students? So help me understand why my son's on detention. I mean, this makes no sense to me. She got in this fight, basically defending my position of questioning, and then about 20 minutes later, turned the dean of discipline's mindset around and got him to realize, holy smokes, I got the wrong person in detention. I should have the teacher in detention, not Todd Mezrah. And so that's kind of what I grew up with.
Wow. What? And were you there during that meeting?
I listened to my mom the whole time, and she was lit, man. She was lit. So you don't want to mess with her.
What were you thinking during this whole thing? Because I can only imagine, to me, I'd be terrified. Like, what was going through your brain when your mom's, like, taking this person down to the mat?
I was basically game on. Like, I told the dean of discipline, and I was dictating to him, what is wrong with asking questions? That's what I've been told to do, and my mom just reinforced that, and that reinforcement made me feel even better and gave me even more confidence to continue to be curious about everything. So it was a life-changing event. I'm not too sure she even remembers that. She might.
It's a great story, and I remember Steve Jobs had the quote, much of what I stumbled upon by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. I feel like that's sort of been the way you've lived by, right? Just this curious, and obviously you've got this intuition, but this curiosity is what's driven your career over these past, few decades.
Yeah, I mean, curiosity is a big driver. Wanting to become better, wanting to learn more, wanting to surround yourself with people smarter than you. So business athletes have no insecurity disorders. They are the first ones to put people on their team that are stronger and better than them in different areas. So a business athlete never thinks that they know everything. And because of that, they grow even better and stronger and have a higher probability of success because of the team that they've built. And that's no different in professional sports. I mean, one of the first things that Tom Brady did when he came to the Buccaneers, his first ask was, I need a strong offensive line. And what did the Buccaneers do? They drafted, the number one draft pick was an offensive lineman. And so these are clear asks from any business professional, any business athlete. Is give me a strong CFO, give me a strong CEO, give me a strong data analytics guy, give me a strong person in marketing, and these are asks, and this is very, very important to business athletes as it relates to building their team if they themselves are to become successful, because no one can do it on their own. Not Michael Jordan, not Tom Brady, not me, no one. Business athletes are fairly humble. Some of them have egos, but at the end of the day, behind a closed door, they know they need help. And that's just their ability to not be insecure about the people that they need around them to make themselves stronger.
And lastly, talk to me about the philanthropic portion of the business athlete? How important is that? Because I know it's important to you.
No, it's super important. So being able to give back is actually huge, but it's not just giving back for me, it's really having an impact. So a lot of people give to charity. They're very generous. They write big checks. I'm not too sure a lot of them know where the money goes, or the people or the lives or the kids or the families who are actually being impacted. So, getting in the trenches, maybe even defining if it's a scholarship plan, what are the criteria in order to get the scholarship, maybe being part of the interview process, maybe putting the criteria together for your team that is doing the interview, just getting into the weeds on all that, I think is really, really important. It makes you feel better about what you're doing. And look, being a business athlete and being successful, that's just a bridge to helping other people. And so a lot of business athletes think about that every day. If I'm not financially successful, then I can't touch other people. I can't be impactful. I can't change the world. The best way to change the world is to innovate, be creative, do something that's super special, build a large amount of net worth to then leverage that to do even bigger and better things. And that's what business athletes think about.
His name is Todd Mezrah. He is the founder and CEO of Mezrah Consulting. Todd, this has been a great chat. I wish you the best of luck, but it sounds like you are continuing to win title after title, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the time.
You are very welcome, and that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.